Today is the 19th of Menachem Av, Tavshin Pei 5785. We are continuing with studying the works of the Tzemach Tzedek about the nations of the world, the Umot haOlam, in Sefer Halikutim, Dach Tzemach Tzedek, which is like an encyclopedia, and it's in alphabetical order. So the section which is about Umot haOlam, the nations of the world, and we are up to the second piece of the fifth section in this part about Shorasham, their root, which is on the very bottom of page Tov, Kuf, Chaf, Hey, which would be 525, would be the numerical value of page 525. All right, bottom of the page. So we are now going to be quoting another piece from the Tzemach Tzedek, from his explanations on Nach, on the prophets and the writings. So we're quoting a pasuk from Tehillim, from the book of Psalms. This is from Psalms 74, verse 17 and 18. Ata hitzavta kol gvulois aretz. You, referring to Hashem, have established all the boundaries of earth. Kayitz v'choyref ato yitzartam. Summer and winter, you created them, or formed them, or fashioned them. Zchar zois, remember this. Oyev cheyref Hashem. The enemy, the foe, spoke against Hashem. V'am novel niatzu shmecha. And a disgusting nation blasphemed your name, Hashem. That's the verse in Tehillim. Says the Tzemach Tzedek. Hine, behold. Pasuk Zeh, this verse, Midaber, is speaking Bitshuva Nitzachas, with a absolute, powerful, victorious answer, an argument, a very powerful argument, against the idolaters. Ha'oimrim, that they claim, the idolaters say, Azav Hashem es haaretz, that Hashem has left the world, the earth, the haOlam, and that the world, misnaheg, is conducted, is running, al pi darkei hateva, based on the ways, the laws of nature, so that Hashem set it into motion, created this thing called nature, and he left. Kayadua, as is known. Af al pi, even though, shehasarim ha'elyonim shel akum, that the high spiritual ministering angels of the idolaters, hema yoidim es riboinam, they know their master. They do not deny the existence of Hashem. And they call him Hashem of all gods, Kayadu, as it's known. In other words, what they are in denial of is what we call Achdus Hashem, the unity, that there really exists nothing outside of Hashem. That they're in denial of. But there exists Hashem, and that without him there's nothing, and that he is the creator of all. That they know, that they agree with. They just consider themselves to be deities as well, and they say that he is the Hashem of all deities. Mikol Makoim, nonetheless, Afal Pi, even though Shemoidim Haim, that they acknowledge, they admit, Shebara Eskol haOlamos, that Hashem created all the worlds, V'hamalachim, and the angels, V'chule, etc. V'hu nikra Elokah delakaya, and he is called Hashem of all deities. Aval, however, and here comes their mistake, after, once he's created everything, ein kol davar chadash, nothing new, nasa is made, me'itoi, from him, ba'aretz, on the earth. He created everything initially, but now nothing comes directly from him. Ela rather, hakoil misnaheg be'atzmoi, everything is behaving, is running on its own, al pi derech hateva chuli, based on the way of nature, etc. That is their belief, that Hashem is the creator of nature. True. Hashem is the creator of heavens and earth. True. Hashem is the creator of all stars and constellations and ministers and angels, etc., etc., etc. It is true. But, they say, once he put everything into motion, he set it to go, and now he leaves. The Ayin Betanya Chelik Beis Perek Beis. And he sends us to take a look for further understanding of this in the Tanya, second section, which would be Shar Heichud V'Emuna, chapter 2. V'hinei, and behold, L'neged Chirufim Halalu, so against these blasphemous statements, Shemecharfim Akum, that the idolaters are blaspheming, Omar Befasuk Zeh, so he states in this verse in the Tehillim that we started off with from chapter 74 in Tehillim, L'raya u'lemoifes chazak, for a proof and for a strong proof, the atzuma oid, and extremely intensely powerful, the who, and that is Masha Omar, what the verse states, Ata hitzavta v'chuli, you Hashem have established, etc. Kayitz v'cheref ata yitzartam, summer and winter you have created. Sheme'inyan kayitz v'cheref, because from the theme and the idea of summer and winter, Yeshraya Gedoyla, there is a very big proof, Lechidush Hashpa'a, for the renewal of the flow of energy, Me'ayin Leyesh, from absolute nothingness and non-existence to becoming an entity in existence. Higher than nature. So he didn't really explain why the seasons prove that Hashem didn't just make nature and let nature run its own course. But he's saying those verses from that chapter in Tehillim is an extremely strong, powerful proof against the claim that Hashem just let nature take its course. But the next piece is going to do a little bit more explaining on this. So we're on page Tov Kuf Chaf Vav 526, the second paragraph. V'hinei, Zeh HaMoifes V'haraya, this proof and this demonstration, Mikayitz V'cheref, from summer and winter, Ein Tzarich, is not necessary. You don't have to bring that proof. Elo la'akum, only for the idolaters do they need such a proof that Hashem is actually the one who's running everything. Shenikroim Am Novel, that they are called a nation of disgust. V'heim asher niatzu shmecha, and they are the ones that are cursing your name, Hashem. Lemor, to say azav havaya es haaretz, that Hashem has left the world. Tachas mikre hateva, and he's left it under the happenings of nature, being run by nature. Liyois, being kishoyresh nefashos akum, because the root of the souls of the idolaters, nimshach, is drawn mitachas hazman, from within time. The source of the souls of idolaters is coming from time. They're within time. The koyach eliki, and the godly energy, hamehave hateva, which is creating the nature, mustar v'nelam, is hidden and concealed, ba'ayin sarim, in the 70 nations. Besoid, in the mystical concept of galus hashchina. This is the exile of the divine presence, kayadua, as it's known. So because the very life, the very soul of the nations of the world, of the idolaters, is coming from a level like that, that is why they have this false belief that Hashem gave over everything to nature, and that is why they have their blasphemous statements against Hashem. Aval Yisrael, however, in contrast to that, the Jewish people, Alu b'machshava. So the expression used in the Midrash is that the Jews went up in his primordial thought, in the divine thought which preceded creation. That's where you have the Jewish souls. Peirush, meaning sheshayresh nishmasam, that the root of the Jewish souls, umakar chutzvam, and the source of where they are, so to say, hewn from, mibchinas machshava el yoina, is coming from this level called the divine thought. Shelamayla min azman, which is beyond and precedes, it's higher than time. This is before the creation of time. Valderich mashal, by way of analogy, hamachshava b'adam atachton. Take a human being and take his thought. The thought of a human being down here, sheneva'as, which is coming, bismidus, constantly, you don't stop thinking, li hafsek lo'ilam, without interruption, forever. As long as a person is alive, every person is constantly thinking. Kach, so too, bechinas oisiyos machshava elyoina, so the letters, the words of the divine thought of above, ha'elikis, the godly, ksivba, so it says with regards to this divine thought of Hashem, as it were, v'nahar yoytze me'eden, and a river is going forth from Eden, shein bechinos chachma ubina, and this river that's coming out from Eden is the levels or the aspects of chachma and bina, meaning the river and the Eden. The river would be bina, and the Eden, where it's coming from, is chachma.
Oh.
Shenikraim, and chachma and bina are referred to as train reyin, two friends, two not just colleagues, but very close, very intimate friends. And the next word, the acronym, Dalid Lamed Mem, is an unusual, uncommon one, and it stands for Diloy Mis Parshin, that do not separate. So the whole phrase goes: Train, Reyin, Dilo Mis Parshin. Two contemporaries, two close friends that do not separate. Peirush, meaning Shemechadesh Hashefa Tomid, that Hashem is constantly renewing this flow, Me'ayin Liesh, from non-existence, from being not, into existence, into being, Vilti Hefsek, without an interruption, etc. And that's why we call it his thought, because just like by a human being, you never stop thinking. You may switch subjects, but thought itself doesn't stop. So too, Hashem's thought, as it were, doesn't stop. V'hu l'mayla me'azman, and that is beyond time. As the explanation to this is written elsewhere. And then the next 8 lines or so are one long parentheses, where he's basically referencing where that other place would be found in various different sources where you can find the explanation to this. So we'll skip the parentheses. So we're going down to the end of a line about 8 lines later. V'lihi yois, last 2 lines on the line. Last 2 words, rather, on the line. V'lihi yois, and being, ki Yisrael Allah b'machshava zoi. So since the Jew, the soul of Yisrael, they went up in this, they exist in this thought process, which is totally beyond time and precedes creation. Ein tzrichim klal. This is the explanation. This is the reason why the Jew need not have any explanation at all, no proof. They don't have any logical proof at all. L'rayo l'moifes, as a proof or as a demonstration, u'lechidush hashpa, and to renew the flow of energy, me'ayin liyesh, from nothing to something, like we said above about the seasons. The Jewish souls don't need proof from the seasons that Hashem is constantly running the world and making changes, etc. Because this is grasped for them, for the Jews, in their very soul. Mitzad shoyresh nefashois b'nei Yisrael, and this is because of coming from the side of their root of the souls of the Jewish people. Bevechinas machshava elyoina chule vidal, in this level, this idea of the divine thought of above, etc. And vidal stands for vidai lamevin, and this, what we just explained, is sufficient for one who understands. In other words, it was a little bit brief, but whoever gets it, gets it. My explanation, he says, is sufficient for one who can get it. It's a kind of common way to conclude an explanation, which can really go on and on and on, but it's like saying those that understand it, so what I said is enough. V'zeu shanu oimrim. Now he's going to explain in a kind of in a deep way that which we say, the Jewish people say, in our prayer. We have the following statement. Moidim anachnu lach. We acknowledge or thank or admit or agree to you, Hashem, she'ata Hashem Elokeinu, that you, Hashem, are Hashem. In other words, the Jewish people make this declaration to Hashem that we acknowledge that you are Hashem. Peirush. So now the Tzemach Tzedek explains what's the depth of that statement. Mechamas, because Sha'at Hashem Elokeinu, because you are Hashem, our Hashem, B'vichinas machshava, in this way of the divine thought, She'al Hashem Knesset Yisrael, that over there the Jewish souls collectively are found up in his divine thought. Bishar Hashem, in their root, Mikar Chutzvam, the source of where they're hewn from, Kanal, like we mentioned above. Al Kain, therefore, Mimela, it's automatic. Anachnu moidim, we are acknowledging behoida azoi, with this gratitude or this acknowledgement and thanking, without any proof or demonstration at all. So that's really what we're saying, that moidim anachnu lach, we are admitting to you that you are Hashem Elokeinu, meaning because you are Hashem Elokeinu, therefore we are able to acknowledge it. We don't need any explanation or any proof. We just know the truth. It is.
It's axiomatic.
Yeah. And for that very reason, all of the Jewish people are called b'shem Yehudim. Now, even though you might say, wait a second, Yehuda was one of the 12 tribes. To call them Yisrael makes sense because they're all descendants of Jacob, whose second name was Yisrael. So they're all B'nai Yisrael. But why are all Jews also referred to as Yehudim, which is where the term Jewish or Jew or Jews comes from? We're not all from Yehuda. So why are all Jews called Yehudim? Al Shem, because of the root of that very word, that very name, going back to the original son of Jacob and Leah, that she named him Yehuda. Al Shem, based on hoida'ah, acknowledgement, admittance, ubitul zeh, and this self-negate, as it says elsewhere, Binyan Mordechai, with regards to the leader of the Jewish people, the hero in the Purim story, along with Esther, was Mordechai, Shenikra Ish Yehudi. He's introduced in the Megillah as soon as Mordechai appears in the Megillah. So the way the Megillah introduces him is by saying Ish Yehudi, a Jew, a man of Yehuda. That's, by the way, that might be the earliest source where just a regular Jew is called Yehudi, because according to some, he wasn't even from the tribe of Judah. His tribal affiliation was Binyamin. He was a descendant of King Shaul, and yet he's called Yehudi.
Wow.
So why are all Jews called Yehudi? For the same reason that the original Yehuda, the son of Yaakov and Leah, was called Yehuda, because it means to acknowledge. And since all Jews, by their very nature, because of where their soul comes from, acknowledge the truth of Hashem, and they don't need any proofs for it. So let me try to kind of explain and paraphrase a little bit, even though the Tzemach Tzedek didn't say exactly the words that I'm going to say now. And I hope I'm not wrong. This is after giving it some thought. By the Jew, even though it could be insufficient to just have emunah, belief or faith, even though that could be unshakable. But we have an obligation, the Jew has a mitzvah to bring it down into his intellect. There is a mitzvah for a Jew to know Hashem intellectually. But that's not where it starts. It starts off, part of his, if you will, his spiritual DNA. He's born with it in his genes of his neshama. He's got it. But now Hashem says, I want you to bring it down into your mind to internalize it. Whereas the nations of the world, the Akum, they, because of where their soul comes from, which is lower, coming from within creation, within time, they don't have that automatic, so to say, gut feeling, and they just know it. They don't. And therefore, even though they acknowledge that Hashem is the master of all, he's Elokad Elokaya, he's Hashem of all gods, but they don't have this understanding that he is actively, so to say, running every single detail, and that he didn't just create nature and then leave it in the hands of nature. They don't have that. Can they understand it? Can they get to it? Yes, intellectually. So their starting point is intellect, which is a pretty high level, and that's the difference of the human being over the rest of the creation. We're not just beasts or animals that work based on instinct or just feelings. We can pride ourselves that we are intellectual beings. Fine. So that is the nations of the world. Whereas Jews are not just intellectual beings. Jews are deeper than that. And B'nai Yisrael, it starts with emunah. So if you want to divide it up in this world into three categories, one would be the animal kingdom. They don't have any intellectual, and therefore it doesn't matter if they believe or not. followers, and they just brain serve and they just do whatever they're programmed to do. They smell meat, they'll run, and it's an animal that's it will know and get food. The animal will figure out how to protect itself and protect its young, and all the things that animals can do. So they don't have intellect at all, and their brain is just their emotions and survival. Okay. Human beings, which are intelligent beings, have a mind that can philosophize and can understand concepts. So those are the people that are able to come to understand the absolute truth about Hashem, and that he is the creator of all, and that he's constantly involved in creating everything from nothing to something every single moment. And then you have the Jew who does not need the intellectual information, the proofs of summer and winter, the seasons, to show him anything. He needs no proofs whatsoever. He just comes onto the scene and by birth just has this faith and just knows the truth, or maybe he knows, just feels the truth, just has the truth. And then he is to use his intellect and also prove it to himself and bring down the emunah into intellect. Right? Make sense?
Yeah, unfortunately, at the very end, you cut out. You said there were different categories. One of was somebody who can get to that level intellectually. And who was that person?
That's the non-Jews, the Umot haOlam. They can understand the truth about Hashem, but their starting point is intelligence.
Oh, okay.
And therefore, they need proof. They need to disprove their mistakes. Right. Their mistake in philosophy is that Hashem is the creator, but Azav Hashem es haaretz, he left the world in the hands of nature, whatever he created, and he's done. He left.
So it's like a question would be like, prove to me that God exists type people.
Not just exists, but that he is actively involved every moment in every detail.
Very good. Excellent.
And the proof to that, according to this verse in Tehillim, is the seasons. Somehow, by studying the change in nature of summer and winter, from that, you're supposed to be able, somehow it's a proof that Hashem is constantly involved. Whereas the Jew doesn't need that proof. Excellent. That's why the reading of that particular verse in Tehillim 74 is speaking of the Oyev, the enemy, Cherev, that is speaking very blasphemously, and Am Novel, and a disgusting nation are blaspheming your name, Hashem, because the Jewish people don't need the proofs of summer and winter.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Sure. All right. So we're at the bottom of Tov Kuf Chaf Vav. The last 3 lines on page Tov Kuf Chaf Vav for next time.
Excellent. I wonder, real quick, is in Tractate Megillah, I think it's 13 or 14. I think it's 14a, but it says that one who rejects avodah zarah is called Yehudi, and I'm wondering if that's what this is referring to. I wonder if they're having a conversation about
Mordechai.
Mordechai.
Yes, that's what it's discussing over there. How do you know that?
Came across it. People, well, you know how, well, you probably don't know, but some people, we have a wide range of people in our groups, and somebody says like, oh, I can be Jewish now because I reject avodah zarah. That was
very good point.
You know,
very good point. So what would I respond to that? I would say no. The difference is why are all Jews referred to as Yehudi? That's a title. That is the adjective of a Jew is Yehudi. no matter what level of observance or belief they have. And why are no non-Jews called Yehudi? Not even the ones that are on the highest level of belief and acceptance and anochai, etc.
Right.
Because by a Jew, that's what we're learning, that where his neshama comes from, the source of his soul, is such that he rejects avodah zarah. Whereas the nations of the world, by nature, have a leaning to this akum business and to the philosophy that Hashem is the creator, but he's only a lakad lakaya, and that he left everything into the hands of the nature, etc. So yes, an non-Jew can come to the proper belief, but that's after he's proven it and after he intellectually exercises his intellect. So that's why he's not called a Yehudi even after he gets the truth.
Do you think that's where, and I'm going maybe a little deeper than I really know here, but this stream of Gan Eden and the river, how they do not bifurcate, they're together in, I'm assuming, Atzilus, but as non-Jews understand, they are still using their brains and they are discerning between the two sides of their brain individually rather than together. Do you think?
Could be.
I don't know.
Could be possible.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Rabbi Turen, for spending the time. This is excellent. We're making a lot of progress, and I'm learning a lot, and I think there's a lot of people that are understanding this, and I'm able to teach a little bit of what I know about this, and it's really helpful. So thank you so much, and God willing, see you next week.
All the best. See you tomorrow.
Yep. Oh yeah, see you tomorrow. Be well.